Did you get your web app up and running, and did you get the output of hello? So unless you're happy with just that output of hello, you need to watch this lesson. We're going to structure the data that we're outputting it. We're going to output it as JSON data so that we can use it within our API. So what we want to do, we've got all of the content within questions. So we want to loop through all of that. And using a for each loop, we're going to set var and can use info in question. So it's going to get each one of those items that are contained within the array and allow us to use those. And also we're going to set up a blank variable object that we can use to load our content into. So temp. And first we need a question. So the question is contained in info 0. So first item within that array. Next, we've got temp answer, because this is all array based. And as we saw within the view there, when we viewed out the content from the log, you can see that everything was within array based. And the temp op is going to be a little bit different because this is an array in its own. And that's what we're expecting to see back within the returned content. So this is another loop where we loop through the array of content. So variable. And starting x at 1, since we want to start at depending on which row. So we want to start at column number 1. So again, thinking as JavaScript with the arrays with 0 base. So we want to start at the first answer because we want this to be part of the options so that we can randomize it and we can use that value. So looping through while x is less than info length. And increment x. So this is a regular for loop that you would expect in JavaScript. And we're looping through each one of the items contained there. And also we want to make sure that the content contained within info x has a length before we drop it into our object. If it has no length, then we don't want to display it. So we don't want any blank content. And if it does have a length, then we're setting up our temp op and pushing. So JavaScript push. And expecting an object there, and that's the info x value that we're going to push in there. So that's going to construct that array, and also we know that we were returning that array. So looping through and looping through all of those options that are available. And once we've finished that, we can take our res, so this is that array where we're going to have our response data, and push the temp object into the response data. And then lastly, we're going to create our output, and using JSON stringify, we're going to stringify that object. So we've got the value where we have the status that was being returned back. So that was part of that object that we're going to construct. So status, and this is JSON, so think as a JSON object, status success. And this is a JavaScript object, so JavaScript converting to JSON. So we don't actually need the quotes. You can add the quotes if you want. And then the data that we're sending back. And notice that this is the same data that we were picking up within the response query when we were querying for that. So that returns back our JSON object. So next we just need to output that JSON object. So we can output it, and we also want to make sure that it is seen as a JSON object. So go into the developer version and refresh the script, and you're going to see the content is being output within a JSON format because it is stringified. And within the executable, you're not going to see anything quite yet. So one other thing that I did want to add, just to make sure that it's understood that this is a meme of a JSON meme. So we can set the meme type. And again, using the content service class, we have an option to set meme type. And the meme type that we're setting is JSON. So you've got quite a few options there. And it's actually not going to affect any of the output, but it's always good to have that within the headers so that it's understood that this is JSON content. So we've got the output and we're ready to publish it. So this is a new version, and we'll just call that ready. And what this is doing is this is updating the executable to be able to output the content. So now that we've got it within our output, you can copy the URL and bring it into your JavaScript application. So I'm going to simply go in here. I'm going to replace the URL with the fresh new one that we've created. and check the application just to make sure that it is still up and running and working. And when we refresh, and just to show you that it is coming from that new source, let's update, and we'll update it to what color is the ocean, and go back into the app, refresh it, and then we see what color is the ocean. So it's getting that data, and we've got our web app working. We've hooked it to the spreadsheet, and then also it's outputting in our application. So it's dynamically adjusting and updating. So one other test before we conclude, and that's to see if we can add in some additional questions. We should be able to update the spreadsheet data and have that reflected within our application. So let's try that, and we should have a different number of questions. So what color is the ocean? Correct. Yes. Do you like JavaScript? Of course you do. Grass is going to be red, so I get one wrong. And grass is blue or green. And I got 3 out of 4, game over. So the application as well dynamically adjusts if we add additional questions in our spreadsheet. So everything is working as expected. Coming up next, we're going to do a conclusion, quick code review, and run over some of the code and functionality. So that's still to come in the next lesson.